Good morning, and thank you for joining us for a live talk with STEM Ambassador James. He is an apprentice civil engineer at global consultancy Stantec. He'll be kicking off National Apprenticeship Week, and he will share insights into his career journey, exploring engineering career paths, and discuss how he designs projects of varying scales in his local area. Feel free to submit your questions in the chat, and James will answer as many as possible at the end of his talk. So that's enough from me. Over to you, James.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lisa, and welcome everybody to this morning's live talk. I'm going to be talking all about civil engineering and the role of a civil engineer. So a quick agenda to start with. So I'm going to hopefully answer four main questions for you this morning. Firstly, who am I and who is the company I work for? What is civil engineering? What does an apprentice civil engineer actually do? How could I become one? And a bit more in the end about our apprenticeship schemes at Stantec. So to start off with a little bit about myself. So this is me, I'm James. My job title is apprentice civil engineer. I work for a firm called Stantec. This is a little graphic of my career path to date. So in the summer of 2017, which is about 6 or 7 years ago now, I did my GCSEs at a school in Oxfordshire. I finished those in the summer. And then in September 2017, I started a level 3 apprenticeship working for a company called PBA. So I did 4 days a week in the office and 1 day a week studying part-time for a level 3 BTEC. I completed that in summer 2019. And then around September, I moved on to a degree apprenticeship working for a firm called Stantec, and then studying part-time at the University of West London for my degree. I finished my degree in June 2023. And since then, I've been working towards professional qualification, which is basically, in simple terms, fancy letters after my name. So that's a very quick intro to me. So I've mentioned Stantec just now, so a little bit of an introduction to the company. So we are a global consultancy firm, is the official term. So we work all around the world with over 31,000 employees. We're based in Canada, but have offices all around the world, including the UK. So what that actually means, coming back into the UK, so we cover a lot of different engineering disciplines. We've got civil engineering, we work on buildings, we work on the ground, we work with mechanical engineering, we do ecology, all sorts of things. But today I'm going to be focusing on civil engineering. So how do we actually make this happen? Well, we've got at least 30 offices located around the UK. We might even be in your local area. We have over 4,000 members of staff in the UK who all work on various different projects. We've also won quite a few awards recently as well. So just going to highlight the one in the middle at the bottom about Glassdoor. So Glassdoor is a sort of external sort of auditing firm, as it were. They check, so they kind of take anonymous reviews of companies, and we were in the top 50 of best places to work in the UK for this year. A fun fact, we're actually a better place to work than Lego, which I thought was quite an interesting statistic for our company. So Stantec as a company, we work for all sorts of people. We tend to refer to them as clients. So they can be anything from schools and universities, railway companies, councils, airports, all sorts really, anyone that requires the use of a civil engineer, which I'll get on to a bit more later. So you might recognize some of the companies in this slide. These are some of the people that I've worked for in the past. Sort of local to my office in Oxford. So we've got councils, Network Rail, utility companies, building firms, all sorts really. So that was a very slightly quick introduction to Stantec and the company. So I'm going to talk a bit more now about civil engineering. So some of you might be aware of what engineering is, and sort of forms of engineering and how that links to science, technology, and that kind of thing. But I'm going to hone in a little bit today on civil engineering. So before I start, I've got a very quick video which will summarize civil engineering basically.
Every day, you and I walk past buildings and roads. We cross bridges and use energy supplies without even a second thought. But what if I told you that everything around us tells a tale, and that you could help build this magical story? Sure, our daily commute isn't the most exciting of activities, but it could be a whole lot tougher if it wasn't for these. Engineers invent and design things, but civil engineers, they create some of the really big things. Check this out, an entire underground world. Engineering is a word for the skill set that allows you to create anything in your head. How incredible is that? These are the innovative designs that create the backdrop to the world we live in. Strong, durable structures built from the ground up to help us live more comfortably, travel faster, and be connected to essential networks. The shopping centres you go to, the entire road and transport system.
Even the libraries you visit. None of this would be here if it wasn't for civil engineers.
How often do you think about the way water reaches you? When you're thirsty, you grab yourself a drink. It's easy to take it for granted. Even the simplest of systems and mechanisms have been ingeniously designed by engineers to work. A relaxing trip in the countryside would be a pretty bumpy ride if it wasn't for the smooth paths that pave our way.
Hello! And thanks to structures designed to withstand floods, like this sea wall, we're protected from natural disasters.
All of the everyday things that barely cross our mind couldn't be done without civil engineers, without the skills of people just like me and you. Shh. And don't worry, being an engineer isn't all about muddy boots and building sites. You could share your passion by working with these guys, using state-of-the-art technology to realise your ideas and inspire others. The potential to create life-changing structures really is enough to blow anyone away. Choosing civil engineering means a well-paid, exciting and fulfilling career with the satisfaction of knowing that you help bring all of this to life. Where does your story begin?
Okay, so that was a video introducing civil engineering. I will have to say that unfortunately we can't yet design portals to different parts of the world, but we're working on it. So put simply, civil engineering is pretty much everywhere. Sometimes it's not always obvious where it is, but it is literally all around us. You know, I've got some examples here. Utility lines under your road, bridges, railway lines. Literally, put simply, it's the built environment, as we call it. So the world would be a completely different place if it wasn't for civil engineers, pretty much. Civil engineering is a very scalable discipline, as we call it. So it applies to a lot more parts of the world than you might realise. It can be as simple as a car park in your housing estate, a new road junction being built somewhere, or even just, as on the bottom photo there, a bit of drainage in my back garden. It can be literally anything really, all the way up to entire new housing estates, new road junctions, new motorways, all sorts really. So a lot of what we do in my team at Stantec, it involves detailed engineering drawings of 3D models, a bit like these ones here. We often take road designs from concept basically, so like these drawings here, through to them actually being built. So the road work you see on the street basically, all the way through to completion really. So everything you can see in those photos that looks brand new has pretty much been designed based on a civil engineer's drawing at some point. So everything from where the new road surface is, the road markings, the traffic lights, anything on those photos really has been inspired by a civil engineer or drawn by one of their drawings. So another key part of work that I do in my team is drainage. So how do you stop a road from turning into a river, really, is the big question we have in our team. And that is thanks to drainage systems. They are very, very vast. There is a lot underneath your feet. You might only ever notice walking down the road, you might only ever notice the little drains on the road or the little gullies, but actually underneath that there is an entire underground network which transports water from those roads and stops them from flooding pretty much. So yeah, there's a lot of design work that goes into drainage you don't actually see, and that is where the role of civil engineer really comes into play. So we have to design these systems to transport huge volumes of water from various parts of the built environment pretty much. So that was an overview of civil engineering. I'm going to talk a bit more now about my apprenticeship, what that actually looks like in practice. So as a graph, because I'm an engineer, I'm going to, this is what my apprenticeship has looked like over the last few years. So a lot of people think apprenticeships are just work and study, but actually there's a lot more to it. You know, I spend a lot of my time working on live projects in an office. I do go to university 1 day a week and do studying outside of that as well. But also there's things like live training sessions, keeping up to date with my training logs, and just about in the top corner there, I do get a bit of social life sometimes as well. So it's not all work. In photos, as it were. So there's me in my office. A lot of my job is office based, admittedly. So I do a lot of computer work. I do drawings and models for roads and drainage systems and all sorts of things like that. Some of our drawings are a lot more colourful than others. But to be fair, sometimes the most detailed drawings are the ones that haven't got any colour on them at all. So I've got a few examples there on the right hand side. Sometimes I do leave the office, I do see the outside world. These are some of the site visits that I've been on over the last few years. I try as much as I can to get out to a real site because I think that's probably the best part of my job, is actually going to a site and seeing the drawings that I've produced come to life, really. And that really helps you kind of link what you're doing to the real world. And I'll take any excuse to wear a pair of high-vis trousers. So obviously, when I was studying at university, I did include a bit of this. So that was 1 day a week visiting the university in London, studying, going to lectures and lessons. And outside of that, there was quite a lot of, I guess, what you guys would call homework, a lot of sort of studying and coursework and preparing for exams and that kind of thing. And that all kind of links back into my job role quite nicely. So I probably mentioned something earlier about social life and volunteering. So I do other things outside of work sometimes. As shown by today's talk, I'm a STEM ambassador. So I do all sorts of different sorts of STEM events, from careers talks like this one, all the way through to attending huge, large-scale events all around the country and sort of really demonstrating engineering to people like yourself, really. As if I wasn't really busy enough, I'm also a Cub Scout leader. So I'm sure there might be some people on the call today who are scouting members or scout leaders who might recognise what's going on from those photos. So that's another passion of mine outside of work, really. So a typical week as an apprentice civil engineer, there isn't one really, to be honest. No 2 days in this industry are really ever the same. I'm always finding out new things, taking on new projects. But this kind of gives a rough idea of the things that I do in my role. So, for example, I've got Monday there as my university day. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just kind of in the office doing various drawings and models for new projects and drainage runs and new roads and all sorts. And I think I'm the things that I really enjoy in my job are being able to solve problems. So actually taking an issue that we've got on a scheme, working out an engineering solution, and actually seeing it come into practice. That's what I really relish, as it were, as an engineer, really, is being able to solve problems. So if you fancy joining me and helping make a difference to your local area, I'm going to talk a bit more about sort of career paths in engineering. So this is what is commonly referred to as the sort of traditional route. So you might do GCSEs, You finish those, you might go to college or sixth form, you might study things like geography, DT, and do a level 3 BTEC course. And then you might go off to university for 3 years, do an engineering degree, maybe get a bit of work experience at the same time. And then you might join the industry as a graduate engineer. You then spend 3 to 5 years sort of working on different projects and then becoming qualified after that. But actually, what I'm going to talk a bit more about today is the apprenticeship side of things. So this slightly complicated looking graphic is a summary of the apprenticeship courses that we do and that I've been on. So I kind of followed the path on the left-hand side where I did my GCSEs. I then joined the company on a level 3 apprenticeship. So I did 2 years as a BTEC on day release. And that's where I combined studying and working on real life projects. After that, I moved on to a degree apprenticeship. I spent another 4 or 5 years at university. And then once that's finished, I'm kind of at the work stage now at the bottom there where I kind of joined the company as it were at a high level as a graduate engineer. And I'm become qualified in about 1 or 2 years. So it's a lot faster process, but there is a lot more work involved as it were to get to that stage. Apprenticeships are quite intense, but you get through the industry a lot quicker than you would do as sort of going to university full time and etc. So why become an apprentice? Well, there are of course a lot of positives to choosing this over a traditional study route, but there's also quite a lot of points to consider, which I've summarised very briefly here. So I guess the headline of an apprenticeship really is you get a free degree, you earn while you learn, your studies often link directly to the job that you're doing at the time, so you kind of get to see that connection a lot more easily as an apprentice. But obviously there's a lot to consider as well. It is a very big commitment. You can't, it's 4 days a week of work plus a day a week of study plus even more days a week of doing revision and things can be quite a lot at times, and you have to sort of consider your time management a lot as well. It's not the full uni experience. I wasn't partying at uni parties while I was studying, to be honest. You don't really have a time as an apprentice, but the benefits that you do get of going through the industry a lot faster, earning whilst you learn, I think that kind of outweighs the lack of parties, as it were. So if I've inspired you today, if you've got what it takes, these are some of the qualities as it were that I had when I was your age at school. So I used to love knowing how things worked. I used to always want to design my own city, all those kinds of things that I really enjoyed doing at school. I was always more at home, as it were, in a practical lesson as opposed to a theory lesson. I always enjoyed being in science. That was more than being in a science classroom. That's one of my examples. And yeah, they're the kind of things that I did when I was at school. So if you've got some of those qualities and you want to join us, then all you really need is some of these. So there's a common thing that people think that you have to have experience to be a civil engineer, but as an apprentice especially, you don't need it. Obviously, it's great if you've worked on a STEM project at your school with a company, but to be honest, it's not necessary. All of my training is provided at work. You get to learn pretty much your entire job whilst you're an apprentice. As long as you bring that kind of commitment, that energy, that sort of knowing how things work kind of attitude, then you'll be great as an apprentice, really. I've pasted a couple of grade requirements at the bottom there, so that's kind of a guide, really. This can change quite a lot depending on which course you go for, which company you work for, but that's kind of a rough guide of what you'd need to be an apprentice. If you want to find out even more after my presentation, our website, stantec.com/UK, has got lots and lots of information about our apprenticeship scheme, and also a very handy looking guide for our apprenticeship system and how that works and what you do whilst you're at a job. And there's a lot more in there that I can cover in 20 minutes today. So if you want to find out more, then that website link's there for you. And that closes my talk for today. So thank you everybody for listening, and I'll hand back over to Lisa and James for the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, James. That was really interesting, and can I point out there, that was an amazing presentation, so thank you. I'd like to welcome Katrina, a talent acquisition specialist at Stantec, and she will be joining us with James for our Q&A session. I can see that we've got lots of questions coming in the chat, so I'm going to hand you over to my colleague James to go through them with you. Hi, James.
Hi, and we've got some great questions come through. So for the first one we've got, James, is why do you choose an apprenticeship rather than a university degree?
So I think I kind of mentioned that in the slides earlier. So it was kind of the progression that was really quick that I kind of preferred really. And when I was doing my GCSEs when I was about 16, I wanted to get straight into the industry. I wanted to really I didn't really like the idea of going to sixth form for 2 years and doing even more school, as it were. I wanted to kind of get stuck in really, and that was what drew me to an apprenticeship really.
Thanks so much. And the next question we've got is, how did you find the time to study when working? So how do you break up the time?
That's a very good question. Sometimes it was quite a challenge. So obviously you have to give up quite a lot of evenings and weekends to get some of the bits done, but the company are always very supportive of that. They're aware of the commitment that you have as an apprentice. There's study time available that you can use whilst you're working if you have an exam coming up and that kind of thing. But yeah, quite a lot of it was admittedly evenings and weekends, but it hasn't all got to be that. You kind of, it's a mix really, and kind of, I think as I mentioned, the time management is really, really key as an apprentice. You have to kind of make sure you're getting all your study done, but also give yourself a bit of a life as well. You can't be 24/7 working on projects and university and things. So yeah, time management definitely is a very big thing as an apprentice.
Thank you for that. We've got another question what's come through saying, do you need A-level physics for civil engineering?
I might hand you over to Kat for that one because that's a bit.
I can take that one if you like. So they say physical science, typically. Oh, sorry, have I frozen? Did you hear that?
Oh no, you're all good.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so physical science, so that can be chemistry, biology, or physics. I would say physics works particularly well with maths, of course, but yeah, hopefully that answers that one.
Thank you. And Katrina, I've got another question. What's probably aimed at you? What process do children need to go through to get an apprenticeship? So what process would they go through?
For the application process.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. So you would apply with a CV and an application form. So the application form, we just encourage, I know obviously AI is coming kind of to the fore, becoming more and more utilised, but we just really have a think about, why is Stantec interesting? James shared a great video earlier today. Have a look at why civil engineering interests you and sort of look at some of our projects and use that to inform your application. So moving on then, it's a process called Arctic Shores, which is like a game, sort of gamified assessment, which should take about half an hour. Then the last stage is a video screen, which is you sort of get asked a couple of questions. I think it's about 6, and you record your answers. I know it sounds quite scary, but it's all relatively easy. It's just sort of making sure you do a bit of research beforehand and having a real think about, again, why Stantec and civil engineering is of interest. And then the last stage would be a face-to-face interview at the office you apply for, and then we proceed to offer. So that's the process in a nutshell. But any questions, I know James shared, there's like a link to our brochure which talks you through it, and of course, yeah, you can contact me as well.
Thanks so much. A question for you, James, is did you always wanted to do an engineering and why?
So yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I was always interested in engineering when I was doing my GCSEs and things. I didn't want to be a civil engineer specifically. I kind of fell into this role, as it were, when I was in my year 11. I applied for, I think, around 4 or 5, maybe 6 apprenticeship schemes at the time. All in various parts of engineering, but PBA at the time were basically the first people to come back to me, and that's how I've kind of landed in civil engineering as well, and I've kind of taken it from there really. I was very close to becoming a bus mechanic. That was my other offer that I was given, but they were slightly too slow to get back to me, so that's how I was very nearly working on buses, but I'm now working on roads instead, basically. So yeah.
No, that's brilliant. And how did you personally find out about Stantec? How did you go about looking for apprenticeships? So
we had a careers advisor at school who was really good at finding apprenticeship schemes, and I think she basically circulated the apprenticeship sort of offer from PBA at the time, as it were, and I kind of I looked at that. I looked at the sort of roles that we do in civil engineering. I was really interested in that, and I took it from there really.
Okay.
Can I just jump in really quickly? Just for anyone listening, so PBA was a company, Peter Brett Associates, that was acquired by Stantec. So we are all one company now, but just in case there's any confusion there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katrina. And actually, there's a question for you in the chat asking, what grades do you need at college to get an apprenticeship?
So as James mentioned, sorry, it can vary. So if you look on each advert, it will say specifically what grades you need, because it just depends on the university. It's sort of a partnership system. But I'd say typically sort of 5 GCSEs, ranging from sort of C or B or above, as a rough guide. But yeah, would just encourage you to check each advert for those ones.
No, thank you so much. And James, we've got another question come through asking, what have you found the most valuable part from your apprenticeship?
It's a very good question. I think being able to work on projects that are in your local area, I think has been really, really valuable, and being able to learn as well at the same time about, you know, I've learned so much more about my local area since I started this apprenticeship, you know, about how things work and how things are designed a certain way and that kind of thing, and just being able to link that back to real life is really, really good. And that's what I really value, as being not only an apprentice but also just working in this industry, really.
Okay, thank you. And what's the best bit about your job?
I may have actually just answered that just now, actually, but I think just actually being able to go out to sites and actually see my work and my drawings being put to life really is what I really, really enjoy. Actually leaving the office, putting on a high-vis vest and a hard hat, and actually going out to a site and seeing my work come to life, really. And then when it's done, actually, you know, going on there, driving on that road, walking on that path, thinking I did that, I worked on that, I put that curve there, and seeing it all work really is definitely what I really enjoy.
Thank you so much. One last question we've got, what's come through, is asking and really from us as well, what best advice would you give to the young people joining today, from your experience actually going through the process? What would you give some advice?
Is that the application process, or kind of the sort of the
just thinking maybe about the apprenticeships itself and the application process, so both sides.
So I think kind of, I guess, have confidence, obviously a bit of a generic one, but I think definitely have a bit of confidence in yourself. You know, I think as Kat mentioned earlier, the process can be quite daunting, but actually if you just be yourself and showcase what you think is what you've got, and that obviously really helps for an apprenticeship. You know, we're looking for people that are creative, that got imagination, that can apply theory into work, and you know, all the specifics of engineering you get taught while you're on the job. So there's not, you know, no experience necessary, as I mentioned earlier, and actually just basically have confidence, and you know, actually if that helps. If that answers the question, it's a bit of a
no, that's absolutely fine. No, thank you so much. That's all the questions. Sorry.
Sorry, I was going to quickly add to that and say James is exactly right, sort of confidence in your own abilities and sort of being clear why you're interested in civil engineering. But sorry, I know, James, you're just finishing up, so I just wanted to say that our roles for the apprenticeship are open now, and we are starting to close them once we've had enough applicants. So we'd just encourage anyone that's interested just to apply as soon as possible, because we do look to take interviews in the next sort of couple of weeks to months, just dependent on the role. But yeah, just wanted to add that bit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'll hand back over to Lisa.
Hi, thanks a lot, James. And a big thank you to James, who was presenting to you today, for an insightful and inspiring talk. And thank you, Katrina, for asking all those other questions. We do hope our audience feels encouraged to explore apprenticeship opportunities. They sound great. And so thank you to everyone who joined us today, and enjoy the rest of National Apprenticeship Week. Thank you. Goodbye.